If you enjoyed the stories you heard, please give it a like and leave a comment. To hear the newest Cryptid Tales, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you've had an encounter of your own you would like to share, or if you'd like to give feedback or make a suggestion, email me at cryptidtalesmel@gmail.com. I grew up in a very small farming community. There's only about 100 people in our small Missouri town. It's the type of town where everyone knows everyone, and the sidewalks roll up at dark. We have one church, one place to eat, and a meat processing shop. You leave your doors unlocked, keys in your car, and if you need something, your neighbor is only a holler away. It's a 15 to 20 minute drive just to get to a gas station. We have no streetlights, and when it's dark, it's dark. Although it's a small population, the area is huge. The area is made up of farms that have been in the same families for generations. Most farms grow grapes due to the high demand of Missouri wine country. The town is in the midst of the Ozarks, and the landscape is made up of rolling hills and fields. On to the reason I'm writing this. I'm only sharing this with you because I recently came across your channel on YouTube. I've noticed several similarities to what you read about and what happened to me 8 years ago. I want to start off by saying I don't know what I saw. I can't say it was or was not a Bigfoot, nor will I say I don't believe anymore. As I stated prior, I grew up in the small Missouri town. While growing up, I hunted and fished all over the area, even swam in most of the creeks. My family roots date back to the turn of the century, and my great-great-grandfather's farm was a whopping 5 miles east of where I live today. Through the years growing up here, nothing ever happened in what I would consider odd or out of place. As years went by, I hit adulthood and moved away thinking there was something better out there. Then, in 2011, I moved back knowing where I wanted to plant my roots. I ended up buying acreage connecting to our family farm and built a home and a barn. I had approximately 20 chickens and 5 guineas at this time. Unfortunately, ticks are rough out this way, and both chickens and guineas enjoy eating them. So I felt this was a decent investment, plus the eggs were good. It was a cool evening, windows opened, and my fiance and I were sitting on the couch watching a show on TV when I heard a fuss outside. My hound started barking and raising Cain, so I muted the TV and got off the couch. Walking into the dining room, I heard what I believed were coyotes trying to get my chickens. I walked back into the living room and into my bedroom to grab my gun. As I walked back in the dining room, I heard my hound let loose. He was extremely protective of his chickens. I flipped on the back porch lights, walked out onto the deck, which sits a good 6 to 7 feet off the ground. I could see something in the shadows, and my old hound dog had his hair standing straight up, barking and growling like he's gone mad. I fired several rounds into the woods that backed into a natural fed spring creek. I heard what sounded like a freight train crashing through the woods. After a few minutes, I called my dog back up to the house and we went inside. I told my fiance what had happened, and she said maybe a cow got out there or something. I thought for a minute and said, yeah, I guess it could have been. 3 days later, on Friday evening, my fiance and I went into a nearby town for dinner and to visit some friends. We got home late, sometime just before midnight. We were pretty wore out, but I always checked the barn and the chickens when I got home. As I walked to the chicken coop, I noticed a feeder laying on the ground. I picked it up thinking my dog somehow got a hold of it and drug it out in the yard, being a pain. As I approached the chicken coop, I noticed a hole in the chicken wire about 6 feet up, and the hole was approximately 18 to 20 inches around. I opened the coop and I noticed blood and feathers everywhere, but only a couple chickens were gone. I figured somehow a coyote or fox had to get into the coop, but I could not comprehend why, who, or what would make a hole that size and that high up off the ground. However, this is the price to raising any small animals out in the sticks. The chicken wire portion of my coop is only 4 feet wide and 6 feet long. I normally let the chickens out and run freely to eat ticks and peck at the ground, so I didn't feel I needed a large run area in the coop. However, at night, I round them up, feed them, and keep them locked in the coop due to the coyotes and foxes in the area. This is my attempt at making it as hard as possible for them to be dinner, and the predators will move on down the road. Later that same night, after patching the hole with some scrap chicken wire, I showered and got into bed, wore out and ready to sleep. I had just hit that spot where you're asleep but still somewhat alert and extremely comfortable when my old hound started this crazy barking. Then I heard this howling, screaming, growling noise I have never heard in my life coming from the backyard. Mind you, I grew up almost 18 years in this area and had just moved back after being gone for only 5 years. I hunt and trap everything you can think of. I've heard a fox scream, I've heard a bobcat scream, I've heard mountain lions and black bear, deer grunt and turkeys gobble, but I have never, ever, ever heard this noise. Now, due to our closest neighbor being about a quarter mile away, and that was family, I knew no one would be on my property this late. I sat up trying to comprehend the noise and understand what I heard. I grabbed for my .300 Win Mag, fearing this isn't an average everyday animal. Then I heard what I thought to be fencing being torn. My hound was already at the back door begging to be let out. He knew something wasn't right. I opened the door, stepping onto the deck after turning on the porch lights. All I could see was something near the coop. My old hound took off full sprint towards it. Now, he's fought off countless coyotes and fox, but tonight he wasn't ready for this thing. He got close and I heard this screaming growl I can't explain, and before I knew it, my dog flew into the side of my deck. This was a good 20 feet away from where this thing was. Now I was furious, thinking it killed my dog. I leveled my rifle and I shot everything I had at it, 5 rounds total. Again, I hear a crashing freight train-like noise going down into the woods near the creek. I rush down and grab my dog, scared to death it's too late. He's about 70 pounds of pure muscle. I pick him up and get him inside. Putting him on the table, I turn on the dining room light, and I'm horrified. He's gashed down his side like a razor blade cut him. He's whining and in tremendous pain. He's having trouble breathing, and he's lost a ton of blood. I know growing up on the farm, it's not right to allow an animal to suffer. It's not fair to the animal, in my opinion, to let it lay there and die. I knew what I needed to do, even though it would kill me to do it. I took him back outside in the front yard and told him he's a good boy and how much I love him, as I have to put him out of his misery. I lost my best friend that night. I spent the next hour digging a hole with my fiancée holding a flashlight and a gun just to make sure that thing didn't come back. As I buried my dog, I felt anger at this animal for killing my dog. Fear because I'm not sure what it is. And empty because there's nothing I could do. Next morning, I went out to see the damage. This thing completely destroyed the chicken wire, and the only thing that saved the remaining 11 chickens and all the guineas was the actual wooden coop. However, it had damaged the roof on the coop too. I believe what angered this thing, when it let out that god-awful sound, was the fact it was unable to get into the coop and grab more chickens. I spent the next 2 days rebuilding the coop and following the trail this thing had made into the woods. I never seen footprints or tracks, nor did I find blood or hair. But I will tell you, it's now 2019, almost exactly 8 years later, and other than a curious fox or annoying coyote, I've had no issues. I have never heard that noise again, and I still live in that same home, now married to the same woman, and we have a new dog who will be 8 in July. I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget the sound that thing made, and I'll never forget the fear that thing brought. I'm not going to say for sure this was a Bigfoot, or will I ever say it wasn't. I can tell you I've been to several states hunting bear, wild boar, elk, and deer. I've spent more hours in the woods than your average Joe. I've never seen or heard anything that could compare to that thing, and I have never felt that fear like I did that night.